Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything's working correctly here. I know it's working on the VIP side. We had a little bit of pregame going on. On the YouTube side, looks like we're working correctly here as well. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I love it when everything works right out of the gates. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you're all able to rest up over the extended weekend. I was away with a nice little trip for my son's birthday. Went to a huge indoor water park, and they got to have an absolute blast. It was a massive amount of fun. Glad to be back, though. It looks like I missed a heck of a lot of volatility. We'll see what today holds in store, but let's jump in. So, good morning, SSFTG family. I hope you all had a chance to kind of rest up, and hopefully you had a great day of trading yesterday. As per the usual, make sure to read through. Let me make it so you can actually read it. On the right side of the screen there, make sure to read through the morning prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all as well before we jump on in today. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, the stream does have between like a 5 and 30 second delay, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. And then, of course, like always, I want to take a second to thank all of our new members, subscribers, Academy students, VIPs, everyone in between. Thank you all so much for the support. Glad to have you on the SSFTG family. I'm super excited to have you all on board. If you aren't a member yet, you have several different options to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. The easiest way to start out is to join as a member on YouTube. It gets you in the chat room and a little bit more behind the scenes and what's going on. Or if you want more info on how we do everything in our trading approach with over 20 hours of video course material and just a huge amount more, swing over to the main page at ssftg.com. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're one of the VIP vets over on the dedicated stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside of me today, analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Let's take a look at some news, take a look at some charts, see what all is the hubbub today. Don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you on the major 7 markets. NASDAQ, S&P, Gold, Crude, Euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. It's a race every time, and we still got our running shoes on. Going into the news calendar, as far as the news for today, we do have some news later today at 10 o'clock. We've got the CB Consumer Confidence for September. Sorry for the monster zoom there. The forecast for that's 114.5. And then along with that at 10 o'clock, we also have Fed Chair Powell testifying, which usually messes with things. So we'll have to play that by ear here. In the afternoon session, FOMC member Bowman is speaking at 1340. And then at 1500, FOMC member Bostic is speaking. Today is Tuesday, of course, so we have the 1630 API weekly crude oil stock. That'll give us a good heads up as to what to expect for tomorrow's inventories. Aside from that, though, the only news that we really have to worry about today at 10 o'clock, that's about it. Let's get this stuff out of the way and jump on through. So looking at the NASDAQ, geez. Obviously, there's been a nice little dip on this move down. And one of the first things that immediately stands out is the potential of this being a measured move. I mean, it's about as plain as day as you can get. It's basically 1-to-1, almost exact. Now, does that necessarily mean the market has to turn around right now? Of course not. But is this a spot where swing traders have a reasonable risk versus a monstrous reward? And that answer is invariably yes, because the risk is underneath the lows, but the reward just back to the inside swing is 2-to-1, let alone the next swing above that at another 1-to-1, and above that even further. The potential on this rotation is huge. So bulls, from a long-term perspective, will have a dip-buy mentality. Here's the thing. Usually before a market reverses, it's got to go sideways for a little bit, right? Now, this whole move could be that sideways. And this drive down could be nothing more than stuck shorts trying to GTFO out of their positions. And if we get some bullish bars plotting on the 15 and really kind of showing that, that could be the case. And we could be in for a V bottom off of this. So again, swings, longer term traders, options, etc., they're hitting this area hard. This is a big zone. How's it going, laddie? And Wally, I didn't even say good morning to you. Good morning, sorry about that. Good morning, good morning. So the NASDAQ, I mean, this is a big spot of interest here. You know, if we're looking at it from a structural perspective, the last rotation was off of an L4 that kind of followed it all the way through up into an L1, L1, L1 into a deeper L2, new high, etc. and now they're pulling back to an L5. I mean, I can't help but notice how nice of a trapping spot this is, you know? I mean, how many bulls do you think were trying to buy the reversal through here, got absolutely annihilated, right? Tried to rotate it back up, maybe exit down. If they were managing it properly, then realistically they would have been long all through this. So when it starts rotating back up, the dumb stops. Where are they going to go? Because remember, the trend doesn't change until we break a confirmed swing. So that still hasn't happened yet. Where are all the dumb stops going to go? I don't want to give it back anymore. Where should I put my stop? Underneath the low, right? No. That's where JP hangs out. He'll take them. They're usually pretty tasty. And again, the reason for that is the reward versus the risk. And we can see that exact same thing reflected on the S&P as well. It's not as deep on the S&P. Totally different scenario. I mean, the NASDAQ's down here comparatively. The S&P is way up in the sky. That kind of concerns me. I am going to say that does kind of concern me a little bit. This could be the start of a much larger descent, wave 1, wave 2. We could be in the middle of wave 3 trying to complete that move down, which means that the NASDAQ could kind of get sucked down with the S&P here. Does also kind of look like a really, I don't like that as a head and shoulders, it's a really wonky right shoulder. And if it makes a head and shoulders now, it's a non-opportune, so it just doesn't fit the bill from that perspective. This is a zone where, I mean, really, man, the S&P is hanging out in like no man's land. Where are you, S&P? Let's go up to the top, see where the volume's at. I'm going to throw a guess at around 43.70s. Oh, okay. Oh no. Oh no. there's no Kool-Aid man busting through the wall here. We got problems. This is a massive problem. That right there. That's, oh no. Uh-oh, we got issues. Hit the e-brakes. We got problems on the S&P. Uh-oh, we're flushing hard. This is a potential really big rotation point. If they start losing their grip here with a POC shift and everything else, oh man, this could be catching up. We got to be on our guard for the S&P. This could get dirty, especially with the difference in opinion from the NASDAQ to the S&P. Because if the NASDAQ does let loose, then that would be a break through a new low. That could cause more problems. Oh, man. This could get dirty. That's no bueno. We got problems on the S&P. And that means bad things for the NASDAQ as well. We'll see. Over on gold, we've got a nice rotation to the lows, and I think a lot of the market participants are starting to pick up on this fear. Like, wait a minute. What's happening? We're getting some strong bullishness coming in. Looking for some shelter markets. We also hear a lot of news talking about, like, was it Mark Cuban? Talking about a huge market crash coming and everybody better buy crypto now before the crypto or the markets tank or whatever. I mean, we're getting a lot of people talking about transitory capital here. We're not talking small amounts. We're talking massive moving, like, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, okay? We're not talking just a couple mil here. This is a massive problem, and if they're looking for shelter markets, gold is I mean, what other market has there ever been in history of a shelter market than gold, you know? Granted, physical product versus futures product, but you know what I mean. So if people are buying the physical product, then realistically you'd expect the price of this to go up as well, and we're starting to go into the end of the year. Man, I don't know. Things are looking really weird going into the end of the year. Gold is, as far as a risk-reward perspective goes, you can't get much better than where it is now on gold. You really can't. The only thing that would be maybe better would be waiting for extra proof with a break and a pullback, and then maybe. But you're talking like maybe 2-3 days from now. So as far as timing goes, if you're looking for as early as you can possibly get, I guess it'd be right around here. But again, before a reversal takes place, it's got to go sideways. They tried doing that here, and that didn't work. So I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to reverse up hard. If they do, that could be the start of a really strong leg. Especially with everything else going on in the indexes. Crude oil catching some really, really strong momentum to the upside. Has this even pulled back to more than an L1? Little pullback. That didn't even hit the L1. That didn't hit it. There's the L1. So they got the L1. They got another L1. So rep L1. Traders come in. They pick it up. Almost slipped it, but they got it. Rotated back up again. Another L1. And now nothing. We're starting to pull back to the next L1, which is back at settlement. Two scenarios that I'm looking for here on crude. We're either looking for a supportive bounce off of settlement and the initial L1 to continue this massively strong trend to the upside. And that does line up beautifully with the trend line, by the way. Or we finally get the deeper pullback that the market's waiting for. And side note, just to say as far as market objectives, this gap back here looks pretty friggin' juicy. And that lines up with what? The deeper pullback. Hey, that's what we're looking for. We've got the L2 right on top of the gap fill. It's everything. So, I mean, I like the L1. It lines up. The channel fits. Everything's there. But the L2 is just better. That's what it comes down to. So, we'll see. But, man, I do like the L2 a lot more. See what they can do. Over on the euro, continuing its descent to the downside. I mean, really, jeez. Whatever bulls were trying to get that reversal going, if they tried getting a breakout above the highs, they got absolutely annihilated. And the market was kind enough to throw them a bone and gave them another break even. 2 times. And then a third to the tick. And then rolled all the way back over again down to a new low. Now, as far as a continuation of trend, that's a pretty good reason for a trend to keep going. The problem is we're kind of running out of wedge space here. If this were a wider channel, then, again, we're more towards the bottom of the channel. It would still make more sense that we either go sideways to the top or we correct back to the top of the channel to continue the bear trend. Either way, we are breaking down and bulls have exited. If they were stuck at break even, they're definitely gone. All right, swap gears onto the faster time frames here and see what's going on. I don't know if the euro's actually going to have anything of interest whatsoever, but it's there. Alright, moving some charts around here, making sure everything's in the right spots. We should be ready to rock. Alright. So, overall conviction, if we're looking across the board here, possibility of a short-term bullish bounce on the NASDAQ, and again, a possibility of this turning into a V-bottom. But there are some dark clouds and some omens hanging overhead, given the S&P is telling us. That's some troublesome movement, and that really looks like a spill. Oh man. Yeah, there's some definite dark cloud cover. We'll go with that. We'll see what they want to do here, but sheesh. Is there room more for analytics, or do you guys call trades? So for too many questions. Yeah, for sure. And don't worry about asking a bunch of questions. That's what I'm here for. So it's all good. We do. I mean, first off, let me preface this. This is not a trade calling service. It's not intended to be, and I wholeheartedly push back against those types of services. I 100% hate those services. I talk about all of that in the FAQs and all of that information. So if a trade calling service is what you're looking for, this ain't it. I will be the first one to tell you. I'm not looking for a sale to try to get someone in because they're just going to be disappointed. It's not a trade calling service. Now, that said, I will take trades that I see fit, you know, my personal risk tolerances and my account necessities and all of those, and I'll take them. And you'll see the analysis and all of that on the screen, yeah. But they're not to be construed as trade calls by any means. Your own risk, your own trade plans, etc., always have to come into play. As far as the analytics, I'm a big fan of analytics. I do a lot of questions and all of that, but generally once we get through the morning brief side of things, we've kind of got our general overview of what we're looking to do now, right? And that's the entire purpose of the morning side of things. Got 15 minutes until the open. it gives us a little bit of a buffer so that if there's a lot going on, we still have some time. And if there's not, we might be able to find some pre-market scalps in there too. But at least we have a general idea of what we're looking to do before anything happens. So. NASDAQ's trying to get a bit of bullish continuation up, but honestly, this just looks like a 5-wave pulse to the upside. Same with the S&P that's looking for another continuation down. I'm unimpressed with the bulls quote unquote proof. Although we do have the 3 higher lows, and that's a really good start. You know, I mean that's good. If we're going from the top to the bottom as far as an impulse, that's 44.04. They just closed above it. So the bulls are definitely trying to take over. Now, if we modify the POC further forward, jeez, that's back at 43.98 or so. I mean, at the moment, it's bearish. That's all there is to it. Yeah, exactly. Most of the market's trading under the VWAP. Everything's down. So this little pop-up doesn't really prove much to me right now. As far as the zone of resistance goes, this is the spot. Get some traps in there. Everybody's trailing their stops. They're going to put it above the most obvious high, even though it's a really bad spot to put it. They'll be there. So that's the hot spot. Still got about 14 minutes until the open. Zoom out a little bit more just so I can see the overall structure here. Yikes, crude oil looks like a mess. Gold, where's the session? There it is. Jeez. Just to give us an idea of where the market's actually gone so far. NASDAQ's just, you know, the index markets are just a little bearish. Just a bit. Now, as far as the NASDAQ goes, I mean, we know how the NASDAQ likes to play ball. This thing's a vindictive SOB of a market, and it's not afraid to rip your face off and smile at you while it's doing it. So we've got to be realistic as to where the market could want to pull up to during that vindictiveness. And it makes a lot of sense. Wow, look at that rejection at 15,193. Holy crap. Would be back up to 15,193 or somewhere around there, right? Maybe a little bit ahead of it. As far as sellers looking for a vindictive push, I don't think a lot of sellers would expect it to go that far up, which would allow the bulls to get a bullish rally going for probably the majority of the morning. It would feel a bit awkward if that were the case, but upside objectives in that case would be 15,193. They're starting to get above the POC. We're holding support. It's getting there. But the bears still, obviously, very, very dominant. Hey, Ace, how's it going? Good morning, good morning. Oh, wow, that burns a lot. Holy mo. Oh, wow. I took a drink, and when I said it had like a little drip that splashed up into my eye. Oh. My left eye is now caffeinated. Like, you're looking at longs on the ES? Yeah, I mean, I think they have a potential, but man, there's some dark cloud cover. The S&P scares the crap out of me with how they rotated off that 15-minute POC. They got a shot. See if they can get the bull rally going. I mean, it's definitely lifting up. They haven't even had a new candle low over the past, like, what, 7 candles? Obviously, the POC's back at 15,000, which, man, what a bummer of a spot to be at for the NASDAQ, right on top of 15K. 10 minutes until the open. As far as trend continuation to the downside goes, so far we've had an L1 into an attempted L1, which had a lower close, and that's really about it. We're digging back into the L2. It's a totally logical spot for the sellers to begin their takeover process. But again, we know the vindictive nature of what's going on here. That deeper corrective pulse would make a lot of sense. That would let all the earlier stuck traders out, too. Which would really help the next move down. We'll see. Right now, we're above the POC. So... see if we can get a nice little rotation to the upside here. Get something going before the open. We've got 9 minutes. Haven't really seen anything worthwhile quite yet. Crude oil catching some nice continuation bullishness to the upside. My concern is that this rally higher is a false rally into a break-even. But that's back. That's back at 76.22. There is some volume nodes up here, though. So still, I mean, if we see some rejection-type candling out of here at 76.28, especially a couple of them, this might just be a false rally. Right now, though, it is a nice little dip buy with a measured move lower. Whoop. And an overshoot. That overshoot is what makes me think this is a false rally. Getting a lot of wick on the index markets. NASDAQ trying to turn down a little bit lower. At the very least, pulling back off of this bullish move. We still have not broken a previous candle's low. 15,000 is right in the middle of it, too. What a great spot. Wow. Given the fact that we have such a huge string of bull bars to the upside, I can't in right mind be the first to the party on the short. It doesn't make any sense. At least from a risk tolerance perspective. Probably going to be pretty early if you take that approach. Now, let's look at the... I mean, really, this is just like 1, 2, 3... They never broke a low here, did they? Yeah, 100%. This is looking for a quick test of the lows. Well, I can't say 100%. Markets don't work that way. But I'm still looking for the bear side. My intentions will be short, but the market has to tell me that I have a reason to go short, which right now I don't have one. So doesn't matter how much I want to go short. I can't trade on emotion. That doesn't work. It's a good way to give up money. Or donate. Bear engulfing bar in the NASDAQ. Now, some sellers, it is right before the open. So sellers are looking for a quick pulse to the downside. They're likely looking for some kind of scalpward. That's a new one. Scalp type movement. Downside objectives for them probably going to be in like the 986s. Then you could probably tighten that up a little bit just to increase probability. 988. Bulls are coming in underneath the last candle's low, which is expected. This is the first time it's actually happened over the past, what, like 45 minutes? 5 minutes until the open, right around the corner. Crude oil plotting a monster of a candle back up above 76.22. Now, given the overall bullish inclination that we've got going on here, if there's any type of pullback that we have, it's likely that they are bulls that got stuck. And we can see them getting stuck up here pretty viciously, in fact. A 1 bar later type stuck, which is the nastiest of stucks. They broke all the way down to a new low. They're being given a chance to get out of break even. Seeing a response here would be logical. It would make a lot of sense. Now, as far as a deeper corrective phase or a deeper pullback, this would be the zone where, I mean, honestly, we might be able to pick up on, because I don't believe this pullback at all. We haven't really traversed a previous major swing or anything, but remember, we're still in an uptrend. So if the market does pulse down to the lows, I'll definitely have my eyes out at the 75.20s, but otherwise, in the short term, I do kind of like an inside pullback. I would prefer a little bit lower, though. $76.02. I don't mind the 76.02s. That allows a little bit of room. It is a pretty wide open door, though. It's a 36 cents isn't huge, I guess. It's got some distance to the downside, but it's pretty bold-faced in the sense that it's just this one big bull bar body, which I definitely love from the bull's perspective. That's a lot of defense. But at the same time, that also means that the risk is a bit wider, too. So there's a couple different approaches. I like this for more of a scalp on the initial entry, but if we can get slightly deeper entries along the way, I wouldn't necessarily mind seeing if we can string this out for maybe a little bit more. Where would... I can't get a 3-to-1 in there. How about a 2-to-1? A little lower? Okay, 2-to-1. That would be the next zone of interest, would be 75.84. And then 3-to-1. It's not much different. That would be the hot pocket. And if it starts breaking underneath the 75.65s, then realistically, it's probably going to be broken at that point. It broken in the sense of the short term. Now, you've got to really look at this and kind of understand the potential risk if it does start breaking underneath that, because really the next zone of interest would be down here at around the 75.40s, which is a clear 40 cents more underneath it. So that could definitely cause some issues if they're not able to at least get some kind of bounce off of this pullback. 928 right around the corner. That's the next big volatility point. Usually, at least. NASDAQ sellers get their scalpers targets filled, and we can see a response off of that, which is absolutely not a surprise at all. But, I mean, really, looking on the perspective of the sellers, they're early to the party, which is why they're taking scalp targets, right? But at the same time, we know that the overall anticipation is that the trend continues to the downside. They're probably going to try to hold on to runners. NASDAQ has less room to go to the downside, in my opinion. I think the S&P is a wider door. Not very often, though, that the S&P outshines volatility of the NASDAQ. One minute until the open, right around the corner. Good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, thank you. We had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Definitely exhausted yesterday. Holy moly. But glad to be back. Back in the groove of things. How'd you guys do yesterday? Do all right yesterday? Challenging? I didn't honestly look at the chart too much. I just saw that it moved quite a bit, and that was about it. $10. Green scalping day, yeah. Yeah, when you can get that volatility on a good enough tilt, I mean, ooh, man. especially on the S&P at 1250 a tick. That stacks quick. Pushing back down, hitting the scalper's objective again on the NASDAQ. Sellers really need to close underneath that as proof. That's the green light, the go-ahead. They couldn't do it. Too many sellers taking profit, causing too much of a bounce at the open. They're tripping on themselves. They're causing their own problems. Or at least the way that I'm perceiving it. But look how it lines up. Way to mess your own trade up, NASDAQ. Now remember, JP Morgan and that whole crowd, they're going to be looking to short this high. That's where all those stops are. So if they're looking to pulse back on one of these areas, this is the spot. The NASDAQ's in a definitive zone of interest up here. If they can get a pulse into like the maybe 30s. The market's still nice and bullish to the upside. Breaking out higher. Bull engulfing bar so far starting off the day. The majority of the volume now coming in at the highs. There's that stop accumulation. Ooh, careful up here. Bulls needed to close above those 2175s. They got to keep it going. S&P, I mean, they might want to follow along if it can catch a little bit of a lift here. Looking at the bigger picture. I'm going to put the clock over here. This drives me freaking crazy. There we go. A little bit of morning volatility here. Got a bit of a dip on crude oil, but not quite enough. Boy, howdy, this NASDAQ. Ooh, man. This is a real big teeter-totter they're sitting on right now. Let's see if the elephant comes down on the other side and shoots him off into the clouds. Bulls still continuing to the upside, although we're starting to run into the moving averages. Again, a moving average is just a moving average. I really couldn't care less where they are, but it is back to a reversion to the mean, which is something of an importance when you're in a very strong bear breakaway move. The first reversion to the mean, regardless of what that mean happens to be, could be a VWAP, could be a longer-term moving average, whatever. A lot of people look at the 200, right? That's a very common one. That would be the reversion to the mean, right? That's the market kind of finding fair value again. And it's notable that we're creating short-term POCs and potentially longer-term POCs around these value areas. S&P turning into maybe a bear engulfing candle now? Wow. All right. So we are off to the races. The sellers are breaking down that top-weighted POC and JP Morgan messing with everyone. Kind of figured they were there already, but it's good to see the confirmation, I guess. S&P still pulsing to the downside. The NASDAQ had a relatively good bull pulse to the upside, and now that it's failing back down, there could be a lot of stuck longs. Golly. We need a pretty good rotation lower as proof, though. Bottom-weighted POC just shifted lower on the first 5. We've got 1 minute left on the first 5. S&P is way down there. Man, I really wish the NASDAQ wasn't sitting directly on top of 15,000. It's incredibly awkward. If the S&P sellers are going to gain a continuation to the downside, this is the spot that they're going to look for that continuation. So we'll see if we can get a nice little pulse to the downside, but I like this zone for the shorts to try to grab this for a drive lower to keep this move going. They've got a break underneath the 96.50s. We're hitting the POC. Can they pulse through? There we go. Nice continuation. Not enough continuation. I'll take the scalp while it's here. I was only able to grab one on that lift, so I'll just accept the fact that it's going to have a difficult time breaking through this POC. If I were able to grab more, then maybe still holding on to one with an offset risk based on my first target, I guess, but I would rather just accept the fact that this is where it is for now. See if we can get a close underneath it. The NASDAQ is attempting to get another pulse to the downside. Nice little scalp so far, though, kicking off the continuation drive. From a swing perspective, crude oil starting to pull back, 76.02s is the area that I'm interested in at the moment, but potentially down to the 75.84s to 79s with breakpoints underneath, like, yeah, the 75.60s or so. If it starts pulsing that, then it's got issues. Still kind of waiting. NASDAQ has a bit more proof to the downside. The S&P couldn't quite get the job done as far as proof is concerned, which is why I took the earlier exit. And you can see they're still having a heck of a time here. Jeez. Let's see if the NASDAQ can get a slight correction back up. I'm just going to cover the euro for the most part. Basically unaffected by the euro at the moment. 14,985 for the shorts could be another potential re-entry for the sellers. Gold putting in a very nice bear bar off of the negative 1 DP as resistance. NASDAQ still low 80s, wouldn't have hurt my feelings. S&P's trying to get underneath the POC. They're trying to get things going. NASDAQ getting a little bit of a lift back up. Low 80s is the zone of interest for the sellers to attempt to regain that control back to the downside. Up to like the mid 80s or so. First zone of interest is here. Nice little pulse higher. First press down would be right about there. Nice little first target area for the initial drop. But I would like to see if we can get a bit further down in the NASDAQ towards like the high 60s would be favorable. Beautiful pulse back to the downside. Can the sellers hold on? The bulls are scared right now. I'm going to take this next pullback short term here and take that exit on the NASDAQ. I don't like how quickly they rallied that back up. The sellers may take it back over, but I had already reduced there, and if they pulse back above it that aggressively, it's just not worth it anymore. Oops, sorry. There we go. Yeah, and you can see a lot of the sellers are kind of giving up on it. It doesn't look like it. There was like 40, 50 tick move in there. Holy crap. Monster volatility. All right, sellers stepping back up again. Yeah, they shook me out of it. They pulsed back up so fast, it looked like they were going to try to pop the top above the 15,000s again. That's why I hate trading around these big round numbers. It gets really weird inside here. Crude oil, okay, what did that, really? 2 cents away, huh? Gotcha. I know, that's cool. Yeah, that's fine. It's all good. Really? Well, that's massively unfortunate for me because we're already at our target area. So I didn't get a fill on crude oil, missed me by 2 ticks, and now we're at the target area. That sucks hard. All right, well, the scalp side doesn't work. That's already done. I'm going to have to wait for the deeper pullback now, 75.84s. I didn't get a fill. It missed me by 2 cents. Oof. NASDAQ gaining more momentum to the downside. Yeah, they straight up shook me out of that one. I thought for sure they were going to pulse back above the 15s again. Yeah, well. S&P still unable to close underneath the 43.96 quarters. Crude oil dip zone is a lot further down now. See if the S&P can catch a close underneath the POC or something would be nice. All right, here we sit, kind of slowing down a little bit, but overall not too bad. With the Nasdaq rotating down a little bit further, S&P bottom weighting down at 43.95.50, still unable to close underneath there and really bulking up down there too. Market attempting to lift back up again. S&P's definitely got some issues for the shorts here. And here it sits, like everything hit pause. Oh, there you go. Never mind, you just got to taunt it a little bit, that's all. Why are you so slow, NASDAQ? S&P trying to get that breakdown momentum. The POC underneath price does not help at all. But the NASDAQ gaining some speed. Looking good, looking good. S&P still, I mean, man, they're bunching up hard on this POC, but if they can get through this and close underneath it, it's kind of game over for the bulls. That's their last hope. Incredibly vindictive new low on the NASDAQ. New swing low. See if they can continue it down. Finally getting away from 15,000. Good, get away from here. Unfortunately, without me. They shook me out of it, but still, let's get away from here. Ugh. Come on, ES. Gain some proof. Got a little under a minute left for this candle. Now, one close underneath it doesn't necessarily prove anything. A close underneath it could immediately close right back up again. But the fact that we're rejecting off of the POC with such a massive trap on the highs and looking for a rotation back down to the lows just makes sense. This is a perfect time for it. Keep an eye on the NASDAQ down here in the 25 quarters. These are where the stuck shorts were in yesterday, basically, at the low. They're being given a chance to get out at break even now. We're pulsing through that. The S&P successfully closes underneath 95 quarters, suggesting that the sellers have fully taken control of the index markets on across the board, really. The NASDAQ's already been in that favor, but S&P finally decided to join the party. News at 10 o'clock. We got 15 minutes until then. Got a little bit of time yet. Man, gold with all this excess proof to the downside, I have to assume that low probability, right? But low probability sellers are going to be looking for a continuation down. I'd really like to see if I could fit a 3-to-1 inside there. That'd be right there. So from a swing perspective to the downside on gold, interesting direction choice. Gold. I was expecting more on the long, but okay. We've got some serious downside momentum going on, and sellers will be looking to re-up, assuming, right? Assuming that we do not hit their targets to the downside. If they hit their targets to the downside, it's game over, right? I can't look to re-up in a position that they aren't in anymore. That's not re-upping. So as far as a 2-to-1, that's all they have. That would be down here. So if it does make it down into the under 30s, basically, kind of missed the move. Yeah, under 29s. More continuation down. The euro is following through, albeit very slow. Crude oil also failing out through the highs. Remember, that was the scalper's objective. I got missed by 2 ticks on that long. And now they are fulfilling the scalper's objectives and rotating back down. That's why I don't jump in those after the job's done. Sellers have a heck of a bear bar there on crude oil. That could be exactly what they need to get short stuck at the bottom. Remember, this bold-faced bull bar is here. Those got a lot of meat to them. Sellers do successfully break down to a new low on the NASDAQ and the S&P, and they're both kind of moving in tandem now. The NASDAQ has been bearish for a little bit already. S&P playing catch up. But now they're together. Yay. I wonder where an entry would be for a 5-to-1. I wouldn't mind another one as long as it was a 5-to-1. Right there. Wait, what? Five to 1. There we go. NASDAQ and S&P breaking down through new lows. Still, nice pulse. The bulls lost their grip, and if the bulls were trying to get the rotation to the upside and didn't take the targets on the highs, well, they're not doing so good anymore. We have a nice breakdown with a huge POC bulk up at 95 quarter, which again suggests that both longs are massively stuck from 95 quarter and shorts are in short with an average of 95 quarter. Kind of a bad average, but bad with the context of right now. if we factor in the fact that the bulls have kind of lost their grip, this could easily slide back to some of the previous structure, and that previous structure is back down in the 43.65s. There's a lot of room, is what I'm saying. $14,920s now. POC bottoming on the NASDAQ very quickly, I might add. They just got down there. They've only been here for, you know, no longer than 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And that's right underneath the lows. So realistically, in context, it's probably a lot of stops. Especially with the speed at which they showed up. So pretty safe to say that a lot of traders who were trying to go for longs and swing longs, etc., and have their stops underneath the lows, they got tagged out. That doesn't necessarily mean that this can't be the bottom. And in fact, if a strong enough bull bar plots here, bulls will take it, 100%. Because they know that the reward versus the risk is so insane. Buying a really strong bull bar down here, closing back above the 920s, only has a likelihood of success of maybe 20%. Not very high. Maybe 25. But the reward versus risk is 7 to 1, 10 to 1. I mean, they can be massive. So it doesn't have to be that accurate. Gold not really pulling back. That sucks. All right, nothing I can do about that. I wanted an inside pullback, couldn't get it. We'll see if they want to come back a little bit later. We might have a nice little zone off of that, but we'll see. Nice further continuation down. It's going to be a lot of FOMO shorts down here. It's usually not the best place to go short. Crude oil is down in the zone of interest, but again, with everything that's going on in this huge bear engulfing candle, I don't necessarily want to be the first one of the party, you know? I'd like to see some proof for, like, something. I'm not exactly going to be the first one to the party buying into a bear engulfing candle. No thanks. How's it going, Vicky? Good morning, good morning. Oh, it's all good. The market's still plenty awake. Especially the S&P. Oof. Crude oil invalidating the trade before it even happened. That's a great start, crude. Good job. All right, well, nothing worthwhile there on crude then. We'll give it more time. Man, I tell you what, those target areas worked out pretty freaking good, huh? As the zone of support. I wonder why that is. Interesting. Obviously being facetious. But it's good to know when you see things like that, that even though I wasn't able to get a trade, at least we know that we were following it correctly, you know? We know that we were in the right book, on the right story, in the right chapter. It's a nice confirmation, at least. Like, hey, you might not have had anything happen with it, but hey, pat on the back, good job. Consolation prizes don't exactly make me the happiest in the world, but, you know, hey. Gold sellers possibly coming in above that previous bear bar. I just don't see a reason for it. We've already filled a major objective to the downside on gold. Crude oil pulsing aggressively lower, likely major point of interest is back to settlement, like we talked about from the bigger perspective. And now with this breakout movement, we can zoom out to the wider perspective and sort of look at where we're at. In crude oil, you know, again, we have that L1 and we might be on top of that L1 right now. I would prefer an L2, and that's back at 74.33. And the S&P scares the crap out of me for longs. Yikes. Oof! Holy crap, crude oil! Whoa! Holy moly! Oh, they just sucker punched them right in the jaw. Jeez. More continuation down means that this is still all part of the impulse now. Holy crap. Big slide on crude oil. I'm glad I didn't buy into the low. Thanks, rules, for keeping me on the right side of things. I appreciate it. Big wick on the bottom of the S&P, although the POC is a mile and a half away from shifting. The NASDAQ has shifted the POC. This bull bar is the first time that we've broken above the previous bear bar's high, or any of this bear trend, for, well, since the beginning of the day. So about 25 minutes. Not likely to hold. That bull trap on crude oil, classic. Isn't that vicious? It is, you know, and I mean, when you see those types of things, you just don't buy into that. Like, I mean, I would love to if it gave me the scalp, and the scalp would have worked, but I didn't get a fill. So I can't. Nah. I know, you know, I know what vindictive looks like most of the time. Hopefully beforehand, right? But stick your hand in the alligator's mouth enough times. NASDAQ catching some bullishness off the bottom-weighted POC at 14,920. I think it's realistic to assume, given the twin reversal that we've got and the fact that that twin reversal ended as a bull engulfing, that they at least get a scalper's distance move to the upside. So probably around like the 960s, 65s would be the upside objective, just eyeballing it, of course. Let's see how good my peepers are. That one, my left eye's caffeinated, so it should be pretty spot on, right? Yeah, 54. A little drip will do ya. Little more continuation of the upside. Big POC cluster at around the 55s anyway. That's a logical point of interest that the market's going to want to go up to. From there, we'll see. You know, it's... I mean, look at the tweezers on the bottom of the S&P 5-minute. Not very often you hear me referring to candle patterns, but it's not very often you get one that's that obvious. So... Crude oil bouncing off settlement. Nice little juke down there. Unfortunately, though, the bulls kind of lost their grip on that last move. It's going to be a tough one to want to buy into. Longs from the scalp perspective did make their objective to the upside on the NASDAQ. The next area would be maybe a bit further up into the lower 70s. Gold also starting to pull back. We'll see if they can kind of re-up. Maybe they show a bit more defense up here for another move. Got 2 minutes until 10 o'clock, so for the morning session on the YouTube side of things, feel free to get those questions in. We'll get those covered for you. For the extended session and VIPs and all that fun stuff, you just got to hang tight and we'll transition over. And should be good. So a couple more minutes, do some Q&A. NASDAQ with a rotation higher here. We are through the scalper's objectives for the most part. If we can start climbing through like the 60s, that would be a bit more proof. Then we might have a short-term long again for the NASDAQ. Slightly more sideways, probably back to 15,000, right? Think of that like the black hole in the center of all the mass, just keeps getting sucked right back to it. And we just gravitate around it. Crude oil also sporting a... Jeez, I can't speak today. Sporting a pretty nice reversal bar off the low so far. 30 seconds left. Sellers on gold possibly regaining some interest as we get closer into the 37s to 39s. That's the hot spot. But I would like to see a bit of extra proof first before I go dipping my toe into those hot waters. 10 o'clock hits. Woo! That's also news, obviously. Jeez. I gotta say, on the NASDAQ, this is a quick little flashback down to the 920s, at least for an initial scalper's bounce. Could be very interesting to see if they want to respect it off there. Yep, that was that pulse right back up again. Wow, I only had a chance to get one. Holy crap, that was fast. Sheesh. Okay, well, I hit the bid and it was gone. I hit the bid and I saw that it was up like 20-something ticks, which is all I was looking for in the first place. Jeez, oh Pete's. That quick little POC flush back. I didn't even have a chance to think. That NASDAQ volatility is on high right now. Yeah, the news is out. 10 o'clock. Beautiful POC flush back on the NASDAQ. Not seeing any questions. Give it one more minute here, and then we'll transition over. NASDAQ on that nice little flush back to the 920s. Although it happened so freaking fast, I barely had a chance to even think. Looks like I got a really horrible fill, too. Deserving of the volatility. But who knows? I mean, the distances here are so deceiving right now. Breaking through the 920s. All right, not seeing any other questions, so let's transition over into the extended session. If you're in the VIP room, you just got to hang tight. If you're waiting for the extended link, I'll post that in the Discord side of things. For the rest of you, if I miss any questions, feel free to get those to me. You can drop them in the comments below on YouTube or shoot me an email if it's more a detailed question, jhb@ssftg.com. Otherwise, though, enjoy the rest of the day, rest up, and we will see you all tomorrow morning. For the rest of you, hang tight, and we will swap over, all right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks. Oh, cool. And my Streamlabs is broken again. So I'm just going to have to end it. So I'll just say thank you now because it's not going to let me type it. So thanks for tuning in.